Welcome everybody. Tonight we are having a special interview because for the first time ever we are having an international guest in MODNE prawo. He's extremely excited about that. And our goal at MODNE prawo is to talk about law freely and sincerely and without any off topics. In our series of interviews, MODNE przesłuchuje, we aim to find interesting people that work or used to work with law or and want to share their experiences with us. Our guest today is Luca, an anthropologist and an ex-law student from France. Some time ago, we asked our viewers to send us questions that they would like to ask Lucas. But before we start with them, I would like to let Lucas introduce himself, maybe tell us a little bit more about him than we could have read in his biography. So, Lucas?
Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you for having me. I'm going to be quite quick because I'm not sure I have very interesting things to share about myself. But basically, I was born and raised in France. I lived in Bordeaux for most of my life until I was about 20 years old. I then moved to Belgium for 3 years. I did an Erasmus year in Leuven, in the Flemish part of Belgium. I went to Brussels for 2 years. And then I went to Paris, and here I am in Lausanne, Switzerland. So yeah, I studied a bit in different places, and now I'm working as a PhD student in Switzerland. I have really interesting things about my personal life. I like going out. I used to play basketball for a long time, and like just the kind of stuff that most people like. Very interesting. So I'm quite happy to be in Switzerland now, even though it's a bit small, and I'm happy to share my experience with you.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Just like one question to you: do you watch NBA?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so what's your favorite?
My favorite thing, I said with the timeline, is a bit difficult sometimes to watch live. But yeah, I do watch as much as I can. And my favorite team is the Houston Rockets that they lost a few weeks ago. So I'm very disappointed now.
Yeah. Okay, so let's start with the questions. So first of all, since we have basically no idea about law in France, maybe you'd like to tell us something about how it looks at universities, how it looks after universities, how the job market looks, and if the work of a lawyer is like well respected in French society.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I don't know much about what it looks like in Poland, so I might say things that sound very familiar to you. I don't really know what's the difference, but from what I remember, like I started studying law in 2011, 2012. At the time, I was living in Bordeaux, and there is something that needs to be explained about the French university, or at least post-high school studies. It's that there is basically two things. You have some very prestigious schools where you need to go through a selection that is very difficult, and very few people make it to these prestigious schools. Like it could be business school, it can be engineering schools, that kind of things. And on the other hand, you have the university where you have all the classic things, mathematics, linguistics, including law. And so law has the specificity of being very prestigious and yet open, because universities in France, you don't have any selection. You apply, you don't really have to pay much, it's very cheap. And as long as you have your diploma from high school, you're supposedly accepted automatically. This is something that is changing in the past years. You might have heard with the student protests and all that kind of thing. But for a long time, it was like this. And at the time, for me, it was like this. Like, you would have this very prestigious law university, and yet everyone is basically free to take this chance. So the selection doesn't occur before getting into the law university. It occurs after the first year. Like, you'd have a success rate of about 30%. So the first promotion would be in my year in Bordeaux, it was about 3,000 students, and only 600 would make it by the end. So I think it's really good to have accessible universities, but on the other hand, because the funding was so low, you would have overcrowded classrooms and a lot of competition between the students because you know that only a few of us would be would be able to pass to the second year. So yeah, there was a lot of competition, and it comes from the fact that it's still very prestigious in French universities and the law faculty. There is still a lot of people applying for this with the expectations of being successful in the job market after this, and finding a job easily, having a very good salary, and all of this proves to be not so true afterwards. Like most of my friends who stick to law faculty and finish their master and even more, they're quite struggling now because you have the competition you have at the beginning, you still have it. Like, there's a lot of people who doing this, and the good spots are not that many. So until the very end, you have a lot of competition, even after you have your degree. So yeah, from what I remember, it was a lot of competition, and it was not very good atmosphere. People would be like the people doing law. They don't really do it for like most of them. They didn't do it really because they were passionate about the subject. They did it because they knew it was going to be paying off afterwards. And you had some people coming from working class background and being like, okay, I need some. If I put the money to make university studies, I need to be sure that there's going to be something paid off at the end. And on the other end of the spectrum, you would have people with very coming from the upper class and with their family is lawyers, like their dad is a lawyer, and they know that they're gonna have a spot for them in his office by the end. So you have like very different people mixed in and competing with each other, and it's not really a pleasant atmosphere from what I remember. And next to that, what I remember is also the way we studied. It was mostly about learning a lot of things by heart, and you'd have exams saying, okay, tell us what was in this chapter, in this subchapter, this and that, and you have to basically spit out everything you've learned and as much knowledge, fill in as much knowledge as you can in like a very short amount of time. So studying law was all about having good memory and being able to work a lot. It was not really about being very critical or having what thoughts processed into it. And basically what you learn, I remember that I just did the exam 2 days after this, you would ask me a question about what I just did and I would just, everything was forgotten already. So that was a weird process for me. Like I didn't really enjoy the way we studied and what was expected from us. But I assume it was also a way to make sure that they find the time to correct 2,000 exams. Like if you start doing dissertation, it's a very difficult thing. That was that was probably too difficult for the teaching staff to handle. So yeah, a lot of competition, a very right-wing conservative environment, and also a lot of hard work and learning by heart. So that's basically what I remember. And yeah, I would say it's still very respected. People would be very impressed if you say you're studying law. But I would say it's also false impressions in a way. Like I think the reality of the job market it doesn't really match with the expectations that people have about being a lawyer. Like many people who start off as a lawyer, they for a long time they really struggle to earn money, make a living out of it. So yeah, or disrespected more comes from that. It's not always that easy in the end.
You said that they like accepted 2,000 people in Bordeaux.
Yeah, for the first year. So
Okay.
basically, they make sure that there is only 30% left after the first round. So in a way, it's a way to say, okay, everyone has a chance to make it, and so we're gonna give you a chance by the exams, etc. And by the end of the year, if you work hard, even if you come from a background where in high school you were not so good or that kind of thing, if you work hard for this year, and by the end you have a chance to make it to the second year. But this is a bit more complicated than that because of the competition, a lot of people would actually pay for extra school. Like there were some private schools that would do like that would help you with homework and will help you with the exams, and they usually recruit some people who used to work as teaching staff for the university. So it's kind of business of making sure that the rich people, the rich students, still get a better chance to pass because they have the opportunity to pay for these extra tuition.
Well, it's crazy to me because like I study in Poznan, and I think Poznan is more or less the same city, as big as Bordeaux, or maybe even bigger. Like population is bigger, I believe. So we got like they accepted at my university about 400 students, and I was thinking that's absolutely too much. So when they like accept 2,000 people, that's crazy. In Bordeaux.
Yeah.
Super crazy.
Yeah, that was a lot. That was a lot. Like the classroom we had. I mean, I'm not sure there's a better word for that. Like, very big classroom. It was supposed to fit 1,000 people. But even this one, it was like because we would split the group into like 1,000 in the morning, 1,000 in the afternoon, and even that with that kind of classroom, like in the first weeks, you'd have too many people and you'd be overcrowded. People would be sitting on the floor, and you really have to be in advance to make sure that okay, you have a seat. And even with that, it's with all the noise, it's really hard to focus. Like the selection also comes with that, like how bad do you want it? Like how much are you willing to fight for it? Um, yeah, didn't enjoy that.
Crazy. Okay, so why did you make the decision to start studying law? Was it something you always wanted to do, or just by accident?
Well, for a long time, in high school, my specialization was more about mathematics. Like a lot of people in my family, they're art, science type of people, and but I wanted something different in high school. I decided to do this. It's one of these prestigious schools, like that I was talking about earlier. It's called Sciences Po. It's more or less about political science, and it's the kind of school that people do when they want to be politicians or journalists or that kind of things in France. But it's a very prestigious one. You have a selection where only 5% of the people will get in. So I was hoping for that, and I tried to do that, and I failed. And I was like, okay, I need to find something to because I don't want to just do nothing. And with the law university, you would have the option to try again that exam 1 year further, so you would not completely lose your year. And I was thinking, okay, that might be an option. So I decided to do law by default. But I could say like it was not really my dream in any way, and but I was like, okay, this is close enough to what I wanted, and it gives me a way to try again in the future. So I did that, and I tried again, and I failed again a couple times. And so at the time, the funny thing was that I didn't like the law university at all. The classes I had, I didn't like it very much. But yet, I was always able to pass to the next year, to the next year, to the next year, and it went on like this for quite a while. And all this time, I was kind of trying to think of a way out. Like I knew it was not gonna work out for me at some point. So I was always looking for a way out, a way to do something else. And just took me like 4 years. Like eh, it was between my fourth and my fifth year that I decided to quit law and do something else.
Okay, so and you decided to study anthropology then, yes?
No. It was not so clear at the time because the thing is I didn't do social sciences in high school and not in the university either. And because I don't know how it works in Poland, but in France, like if you study law, you're not going to have a chance to explore some other things. Like you're not going to be able to pick some class about philosophy or some class about sociology or history. It's very like if you're in one field, and it's the same for the other field. Like if you study history, I don't think you have many options to study something else. So from the very start, you need to choose what you want to do, and you don't really have a chance to explore all different kind of things. So I didn't know much about social sciences, but I felt like, okay, I have an interest in that. And what was probably the turning point is that in my fourth year, so it was the first year of my master. I don't know if it's the same in Poland, but in France it's like 3 years bachelor and then 2 years as master. So it's different from the UK, for instance.
It's usually like that.
Okay. Because I mean, in the UK they have 4 years and then one. Master one. Really put it make a difference. So yeah, first year of master, I did it as an Erasmus student, and I went to this university in Leuven, like the Flemish part of Belgium. Like it's a very big university in Belgium. And over there, you had the option of choosing for the whole year. You had the chance to choose 3 classes that would be outside your faculty. So at the time, I took something like philosophy. I took something like social psychology and something like religion studies, and I was like, okay, I like it much more than what I was doing since then. And I had some very like I was a bit scared because I was okay. I'm gonna be in a master program with people who've been doing this for years, so I have no training or no basics in these fields. So I was a bit anxious, but it actually turned out quite well. Like I had really good grades, and I was like, why am I still studying law? And, like I'm not that good at it, and I really don't like it. And like I might as well just do something I'm good at. So it gave me sort of the assurance that okay, if I do social sciences, I will be able to enjoy it and be good at it. So at this point, I decided, okay, I'm not because I was supposed to go back to France to finish my master in the second year. It was public law, and it was like not something I was very interested in. And so I decided to just look for another master in something else where I would be able to study social sciences. I didn't want to go back to square one, like start up as with people who are like 18 years old and just starting from scratch. I wanted to. I had a bachelor already in law, and I wanted to be able to use the credits from my bachelor to study in a master. So at this point, I started looking around for. I actually had a plan in mind. It was being able to find something where you have different kind of fields, like something not too specialized. Because I was thinking, okay, they might be able to accept people from different backgrounds, like. So I looked into different master programs, and what I found was that there was a lot of university doing these sort of development studies programs. And development studies, it's something very vague. Like the only common theme they have during the master is that he has to talk about development. But it could be economy of development, it could be sociology of development, it could be psychology, it could be Like they usually have a mix of very different things about development. So development in the sense of like the United Nations, they have some plan for development for the third world and that kind of stuff. And so I started applying for a lot of these things, and a lot of them didn't respond to me. I was a bit frustrated. And so I kind of lost hope at some point, but at the very last moment, there was one program that took me in. It was in Brussels, at the Free University of Brussels, and so I decided to do it. And at the time, I was very interested in migration, and I was thinking about specializing in sociology of migration within that program. So this program, it gave you a lot of choice in terms of what kind of things you want to study. They give you one core, like 2 or 3 classes that are mandatory, and all the rest, the options, you can choose from any faculty as long as it fits into the development era, which is very large. Like it can be about education, it can be about agriculture, it can be about like energy or like migration, just all kind of things. So I did that, and I specialized a bit in migration and sociology, and I was a bit disappointed with it. But then one of my mandatory classes was about anthropology, and I really enjoyed it. And so during the second year, I specialized in anthropology, and we had to do a research work, like you had to do a field work and collect some data and do a thesis about your field work and the data you gathered. So I decided to do it in a very anthropological way because I was really excited about it. And that worked out really well. I went to Mauritius for 5 months to do my fieldwork and an internship there. It was really cool. I really enjoyed it, and as I came back, I was really decided to do research work. I found it much more interesting than my internship, and I was like, okay, now I've decided to do a PhD. I want to do a PhD, and I'm gonna try to do it. So yeah, at the time I decided, okay, I want to do a PhD in anthropology, given the experiments I had a chance to do in my master. And then I stumbled back in the same problem that I had before. It was that I didn't have a anthropology degree. So I had very good grades in my master in development. I worked really hard and I had really good grades. I was really motivated by the PhD thing, and you had to have a certain kind of grade. So I made sure that I had this grade. And at that point, I was supposed to apply for PhD positions, which I did. And most people told me like, yeah, you have good grades, but it's not really anthropology. You're not specialized in anthropology. So they told me you need to do another master. And I was a bit fed up with that. Okay, well, it was very frustrating, but I said, okay, I'm going to do it. And I applied to a very prestigious school in Paris about anthropology. And I did this for 1 year. So I didn't have to do 2 years, I had to do only 1 year. And this is the moment I specialized really in anthropology. And the good thing is that it allowed me to go back to doing fieldwork. And I was still working on the same topic, so that kind of made sense to build up my PhD project. Like it gave me more material for my PhD application. And so I did this 1 year in Paris in anthropology, and again I had to work quite a lot to make sure that I had the required grades for applying for PhD. So I did that, and after this I was able to apply for PhD positions, and someone suggested told me, okay, there's a new position in Lausanne, you should apply. I didn't know much about the university or the professor I was going to be working with, but I decided to apply. And it was a bit obscure thing, so I don't think many people applied. and so I got the position, and here I am.
Wow. Okay.
And that was a bit longer.
Yeah, it's long, and you kind of answered lots of my future questions, but that's cool. Yeah. So, I've, yeah. So it wasn't that easy to get into like PhD.
No.
Because like in Poland, in Poland it's also really difficult. Not many people can get in actually.
But
okay, so
in what sense is it difficult? In what sense is it difficult in Poland? Is it about because there is not many positions, or?
Yeah, not that many positions. I believe it's difficult in like everything, no matter what you do. Getting a PhD, it's really difficult.
In France, it's very difficult as well. I mean, there is two things in France. It's like you can quite easily do a PhD, but being funded for your PhD is very difficult. So, like, you would have a lot of people who are so dedicated to it that they're gonna do their PhD even if they have to work on the side at McDonald's or something, like just to have money. But they will find a professor that's willing to help them with the PhD, and it's going to take a lot more time than it should be, but they're going to be able to do it. And if you want to be paid to do your PhD, which should be the case, and I think it's really not a good thing to do PhD without funding. It's really much, it puts too much pressure and it takes too long. But if you want to have funding, yeah, it's very difficult. And they usually take only like 3 or 4 best applications in lots of them. But you can always find a way. Like for me, it worked out because my professor in Paris, I wanted to do my PhD with him, and I think he didn't want to, probably because he had too much work, or maybe he didn't like my project that much. But I think he, at some point, he decided to help me to find someone else to do my PhD with, and so he paid attention to all the emails, because like now that I'm in academia, I actually receive a lot of emails about people offering application or positions, but these kind of things I would not have been able to find it if I was not, if my professor didn't tell me about it. So he told me about it, and he knew the person that was opening the job, so he gave me a nice recommendation letter, and the person was able to trust his word because she knew him. And so it wasn't that hard in the end when you add that kind of connection, and when people have seen you at work and they can follow what you're doing. But also, I think in Switzerland it's a bit easier because they have a lot of money. Switzerland is a rich country and much more than France in terms of university, so they have a lot of money for that kind of stuff. They open PhD positions quite on a regular basis. The university is not as prestigious as in Paris. I don't really mind, and also I should say that for my PhD contract that I am paid, but also because half of my time is supposed to be dedicated to teaching. So I'm a PhD student, so I do my research, but I also have like students, and I'm a teaching assistant. I take care of all the things that the professors don't want to take care of. And it's a lot of work. So, but I think that's why they keep me money at the end. Not so much like my research, but it allows me to put to put food on the table and still do my research. So I'm happy with that kind of arrangement.
Okay, so could you maybe tell me about what your PhD thesis is about? I know that you like recently came back from a 6-month trip to Seychelles Islands.
Yes. Yes. I just came back in July. From January to July, I was in the Seychelles. Well, I worked very quickly. I worked on people from the Chagos Islands. So that's a very small group of islands in the Indian Ocean, and these islands were the American military. They decided to put a base, a military base, and they basically evicted all the people, all the population from these islands, and they just reported them to Mauritius and the Seychelles. So what I do is I work with this community, this displaced community, and I work on the topic of diaspora to make it very simple, like people being dispersed in different places, and usually in a very traumatic way. So I work on the idea of diasporas from the data that I collect with this community. And to collect the data, I have to live with them for a rather long time. So in anthropology, we call that ethnography. So that means that I go there and I live with these families. I just sleep in their house, and I just everything they do, I do it. So the idea is to really be part of the community for a while until you. So that implies to learn the language. That implies to just accommodate yourself with all the difficulty that it might imply. Like you're immersing yourself in a new culture, you're immersing yourself with people who have different expectations or different ways of living, and you have to adjust yourself to that because you're the stranger one. So it's not always easy, but it's also very exciting for me because you get to find out so many informations that people would not necessarily be willing to tell you or just think about telling you, and you just do quick interviews like journalists might do something. So you access a lot of information, and you're able to experiment something very a deep knowledge of the topic you're working on from that kind of methods, and I find that very exciting. So yeah, I collect the data and then I go back to Switzerland and I work on my data. So I was supposed to go back to fieldwork soon, but with the COVID crisis, it's kind of a mess now. So I'm not sure how that's going to work out. But yeah, so I did 6 months in Seychelles, and I still have the other fieldwork that I did as a master student. So I have enough data for the moment to work on something, but I hope to be able to go back there in the future.
Okay. Okay, so knowing where you are now at the moment, would you make the same decision about like quitting law if you had like to decide today?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Yeah. Yeah, but it was very clear for me from the start that I was not going to be a good lawyer because I really didn't like it. And I was not very good. I was good enough to pass, but the thing we quickly realized, at least in France, is that there is so many people doing it and so many competition that being good enough to have a diploma is not really relevant. Like you have to be good enough to be in the top of the promotion, and like to get to that point, you have to work a lot, and if you're not enjoying what you're doing, or if you're not really dedicated to, I mean, I never really was able to picture myself as a lawyer or as someone working as a in a law firm or anything. So yeah. No, the only regret I may have is just starting with law in the first place. Like this, I feel like I spent a lot of time working hard for nothing. 'Cause all the knowledge I had from this time didn't really help me now. I'm not really using any of it now. And now I kind of regret of not having the basics of anthropology. But the thing is, at the time, I didn't know that anthropology would be something I would be interested in, and so I think it was necessary for me to go through all the process of like doing things I don't like to realize when I do something that I enjoy. So I have no regrets about quitting law, and kind of wish I did sooner, but maybe he helped me with a few things like the work ethics or like the way you learn to construct an argument as a law student. I think it's always helpful no matter what you do afterwards. But the content of the class is always just nice. I don't really remember everything, and I don't think it happened. Some people do anthropology of law, and some people are lawyers and they turn into anthropology, and they start doing anthropology of legal stuff. Like, I mean, there's a professor in my lab. He's American, and he studied law in the US, and then he decided to do anthropology, and he's doing legal anthropology, and that exists. But for me, it was so clear that I didn't like legal stuff, that even as an anthropologist, I didn't want to have anything to do with it. So yeah, it was very, like, I tried to make a lot of distance between these years as a law student and my current research. So yeah, no regrets, and especially because I see my friends. Like, one of the reasons I did law was because people told me, yeah, but it's tough out there. You need to do some studies where you're sure you're gonna get a job and something. And I look at my friends who studied law in France, and many of them are struggling now. And I have a job. So yeah, and I managed to. I think that if I stick to law, I would be in a really bad position now because I was just not good enough to be to be to pass the selection that you might have after the master. Yeah, no regrets.
Okay. Okay. So do you think that everyone who doesn't feel the passion for their studies should quit them, or maybe just go with it, finish it? What do you think? If you don't like something, then just quit it.
I don't know. I mean, for me, there is two questions you need to ask yourself. Um, like, I see a lot of people who decided, like, okay, I want to do something I'm passionate about, and then they will start being musicians or that kind of things, and then they realize that, okay, well, maybe I liked it as a hobby, but making a career out of it, it's something else. So I think that when you project yourself into a career, you can't just think about the good stuff. You need to think about the process that leads to the good stuff. Like, as anthropologists, people, when I say, okay, I did field work in Seychelles, like, everyone's like, oh, so cool. Oh, you went to the beach and and they just think about the good things. But the reality of the fieldwork is usually pretty bad. Like, we live with families that are really poor. There's a lot of conflict, and there's a lot of things that are not very pleasing. And the reality of being an anthropologist is mostly about reading books, like a lot of theory, a lot of books. And there's nothing really exciting or adventurous about this, like the cliche that people may have about anthropology. So if you feel like, okay, I'm dedicated enough to enjoy the process that leads to the things I'm passionate about, well, yeah, you should give it a shot. But I mean, it's worth looking in that in in the in your what you're projecting. It's worth looking into it with this kind of perspective, like, because sometimes a hobby you're passionate about, but it doesn't mean that it's going to make a good career plan. And on the other hand, like, if you're doing something just passionate about, and you do it just because you feel like, okay, I need to do this because it's more secure in terms of jobs. Well, I mean, this is what I said about my friend who stick to being lost in Sunday. It's like, if you're really good in something, you'll always find a way to make a career of it. And if you're just decent at something you're not very passionate about, even if it's supposed to be a secure stuff, like, I don't think it's going to be, the outcome is going to be great. Like, For me, it's very clear that I had a better chance of being employed as a social scientist because I really liked it and I was good at it. And
Mhm.
on the other hand, as a law student, I was very average, and clearly that was not good enough. So even though you might think that okay, there is more jobs as a lawyer than as an anthropologist, in the end, if you take into account that kind of information, it makes it not so secure the passionate option. So yeah, I think these two things you need to keep in mind when you make that kind of decision.
Mhm. Okay, so what do you think is like your biggest career success so far?
Wow, not really anything. Okay, everything is still in construction. Like a PhD takes a lot of time. It
Mm-hmm.
takes like 5 years at least. Like I have funding for 5 years, so I hope that will be enough. For a lot of people, it's not enough. So I hope I'll be able to finish in
Mm-hmm.
time. And it's a very long process. You're able to see the results only after a few years. You don't have this kind of quick gratification. Like it's very grateful for a long time, and then at the end you have something that you can be proud of.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not quite there yet. Like, I'm still in the process of it. But I think I was quite happy with what I did as a master in my thesis and being able to learn a new discipline, like to learn new language as well, because I had to do this for my fieldwork, and it was a lot of challenges, and it was really not easy, and I had to take a lot on myself for that kind of stuff, and I was able to pull it off, and I was really that's something to be proud of, but it's not really. Uh, it's not really a finished product. Like for now, I don't have anything to show to people. Like, okay, this is what I do, and this is why I work so hard, and this is why I read all these books. So yeah, it's not there yet.
Yeah, but
Hopefully one.
it's like yeah, but
So
like you do what you like. So I think that's a big success.
yeah,
Because like
yeah,
most
yeah.
people,
It's,
yes, have to do things they don't like or even hate. Yes.
well, I mean, I like it, but not. It doesn't mean that it's funny every day. Like it doesn't mean it's fun every day. Like especially like these days, I spend most of my time with teaching duties, and
Mm-hmm.
can't say I'm passionate about answering to emails to students and that kind of thing. So it's like you have to go through that as well, and not
Mm-hmm.
everything is going to be fun. But yeah, I'm happy with doing something I enjoy. That say that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so now I will ask you like last question. We ask this question to every guest. Um, so it's like what advice would you like to give to all of our listeners, all of our viewers? Like most of them are at university or about to go into university. What kind of advice
Mm,
do you have for them?
well, I would say you're still in the beginning of like making choices, and at the very beginning, I felt very trapped. Like I felt like okay, I in my first year of law and then my second year, and I was like, okay, there is not going to be a way out. Like in a minute, and this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. Just it's too late to change, and you don't really realize that there is actually some bridges between different career paths, and at some point, it's not really just about the kind of diploma I have. It's also about the kind of skill set you might have, the kind of experience you can have, and like usually being involved in outside university organizations or projects, it helps with that because you meet people with different backgrounds and they might have the context that you need at the moment when you feel like, okay, maybe I've chosen the wrong path. Like yeah, just like you're young, you have the options to change. It's not going well, so maybe don't panic and just keep your eyes open. Because there might be something that you enjoy more.
Mhm. Yeah, okay, so thank you a lot. I hope to talk to you soon. We are so excited to have you here. Yep.
All right, thank you. Thank you.